All right, it's time to rank my NES game collection. So I've got 36, 37 games. I'm just going to go through them from my least favorite to my favorite. Not really going to talk about them, just going to share them and rank them. So let's do this. All right, my least favorite is Roger Clemens Baseball. Just doesn't hold up at all. Next is The Last Starfighter. I played it a lot more when I was a kid. Now it's just not something that I really get a lot of enjoyment out of, even though I love the movie. Next is Millipede. Again, played it a lot more when I was a kid. I think I play it more on my Atari than I do the NES. The NES version, just for whatever reason, just I don't know, just don't enjoy it as much. Probably because there's other options when I want to play the NES. Next is Jeopardy. Again, just doesn't really hold up all that well. There's better game show options out there, even on vintage consoles. Next is Karate Champ. Um, yep, Karate Champ is just a piece of nostalgia that's fun. Not great by any means. Next is Faxanadu, kind of a D&D type of game. I played it a lot when I was a kid. Another one that just doesn't really hold up as well now. Disney's Adventures in the Magic Kingdom are next, and yeah, this is another one I have a lot of nostalgia for, and that's really the only value here. It's really not that good of a game. Next is Top Gun. This is one that I want to like more than I do. It's a difficult game to do well on, or at least for me it is. But that doesn't mean that I haven't had fun playing it. So Top Gun is next. Next is Fester's Quest. This is an odd game that I must admit I've spent hours of my life playing it. Out of the games that don't hold up, this one kind of holds up the best just because it is so kind of original and different. Next is Operation Wolf. Out of the war movies on the NES, it's difficult finding ones that actually hold up. Today we have things like Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, and things like that. So war movies definitely feel a lot more they kind of show their age more than a lot of other games do. And this is kind of out of the war games that I have on the NES. This is the one that I kind of revisit the least. Next, we have Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Man, this game was hard. This game frustrated me as a kid. The whole jumping from rail car to rail car level, man, I just had a hard time with that. Still, kind of captured the spirit of Indiana Jones, I guess. Next is Hook. It was a movie tie-in that really didn't feel like the movie, but I had some fun playing this when I was younger. Next, we have Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This game does a really good job of capturing the story of the movie. I think there's 5 or 6 levels in this game, and each level is a big set piece from the film, and that kind of made this game a lot easier to get immersed in if you were a fan of the movie. Next is Back to the Future. I love the skateboarding levels on this game. Some of this game was frustratingly difficult, but a lot of it was just really fun, and I have a lot of nostalgia for this one. Speaking of nostalgia, Home Alone 2 Lost in New York is another NES game that I just have a lot of nostalgia for. Got this game when the movie came out, and I played it a lot in that year, probably in the next year or so. I played it a lot. I've revisited it recently, and it's silly now. It doesn't really hold up that well, but again, a lot of nostalgia for this one. Next is Dick Tracy. For whatever reason, this is a game that I got it when the movie came out when I was a kid, and then I had a hard time really getting into it, and I found myself enjoying it more as an adult. Just the gameplay mechanics, I think, were a lot easier for me to follow as an adult than when I was 10 years old. Next is Track and Field. Now, I've been coaching track and field for, gosh, almost 20 years. So obviously, I've got some love for this game, even though this game is there's some events that are just difficult to accomplish. Track and field's very near and dear to my heart. Next is Predator for a video game. This one has a great soundtrack, great sound effects. The game doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the movie, and it's frustratingly difficult in parts, but there are definitely a lot of really fun levels and fun challenges to be had in this game. And like I said, the soundtrack's great. Speaking of soundtracks, Mickey Mousecapade had a great soundtrack that just caught the essence of the game and the story that was being told here. And as a side scroller, Mickey Mousecapade just does a really good job of delivering fun. So it's the next one. Next on the list is The Karate Kid. I'm a big fan of this franchise, and the game mostly focuses on The Karate Kid Part 2. I think this game came out around the time Karate Kid 2 was out in theaters. The very first level is the All Valley Tournament, beating Johnny, and then it goes straight to Japan. This game is difficult to master, easy to die, but once you get the hang of it, it's a fun side-scroller. Next up is Tetris. Who didn't enjoy this game? Now, I discovered this game on the Game Boy. It wasn't until later when I got it on the NES, but between the Game Boy and the NES, I've spent hours and hours of my life playing this game. Next is Ghostbusters. I concede I'm probably in the minority that I have enjoyed this game. I've beaten it several times, and for me, the most memorable part of this game is probably the text when you beat the game. A lot of misspelled words, and I'm pretty sure they were trying to speak English, but I'm not 100% sure that that's what came out. Next up is The Punisher. This is a game that I enjoyed a lot more when I was a kid because it definitely reminded me very much of the first-person shooter arcade games that was out at the time. And, you know, this one doesn't really hold up as a first-person shooter anymore, but there's a lot of nostalgia here, and it's fun to go back and revisit kind of the beginnings of those first-person shooters. Next, we have Narc. This game was a side-scrolling shooting game that was a lot of fun. I loved loading the gun to max capacity and just blowing bad guys away. It's not a game that I revisit a lot anymore as an adult. When I want to get into a shooter, there's definitely games that I'm drawn to first, but this game, there's a lot to enjoy here. All right, guys, I might be a little weird, but Jaws is one of my favorite NES games. It tells the story of Jaws the Revenge, which is the worst Jaws movie, one of the worst movies ever made. But I'm such a huge fan of the Jaws franchise that I'm drawn to this game. And quite frankly, this game is a very fun, quick play. You can beat the game in under a half an hour. It's not ridiculously hard, but it's challenging. And the graphics are okay. And there's just a lot to like here as a quick, challenging, I only have half an hour to play. I'd like to complete a game, so I'm going to plug this one in and play it. Jaws, there's a lot to like here. There really is. Next up is the Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt combo. You know, I've spent a lot of time playing Duck Hunt when I was little. Haven't really revisited it as an adult, but Super Mario Bros. Is one of the greats. Kind of the start of the whole side-scrolling phenomenon, and there are a lot better Mario games out there than Super Mario Bros., but it's a lot of fun going back and revisiting this one. Next up, again, probably an unpopular opinion, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Who Framed Roger Rabbit was one of the first open-world games that I ever played. There was a lot of places to explore on the map, a lot of buildings to go into, a lot of places to unlock, and it had a mystery. Even though you've seen the movie, you know who the bad guy is. It had a mystery that was fun to play through as a player. You're playing Eddie Valiant, not Roger Rabbit, and you're trying to solve the mystery. And again, you have a big open world environment to explore that's very cartoony, very silly, and it really captures the feeling. It really captures the feel of the Roger Rabbit movie. So again, I've never seen anybody rank this game as high as I do, but I really like this game. Next up, we have the first Castlevania. Excuse me. There are better Castlevania games out there, but this is the first one. This one set the tone. This one established what Castlevania is. And even though if I want to play a Castlevania game, I'm usually going to go to Castlevania 3, but it's fun to put this one in every now and then. Like I said, just to take a stroll down memory lane. Next up, we have The Adventures of Lalo. Man, I played this game a lot as a kid. This is a puzzle-solving game where you go dungeon to dungeon and you try to solve the puzzle to figure out how to escape. And I've never really figured out what Lalo is, but whatever he is, he's cute, and it's a fun game that that really challenges your problem-solving skills. The next game is the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. This is one that is historically hard. It's a very difficult game to beat. In fact, I don't think I ever have beaten it. I've made it deep into the game. I know people who haven't made it past the water stage at the dam, which I've made it a lot further than that. But I don't think I've ever beaten this one. This one is a very difficult game to beat, but for what it is, that first attempt at making a Ninja Turtle game, it was fun, and it really did a good job of catching what the Ninja Turtles are. Into the top 7 now, we're looking at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project. This one definitely takes its cues from Turtles 2, the arcade game. This one is more difficult than the arcade game is, but it's very similar. It's almost so similar that's why it's ranked this, that's why it's not ranked up where the second one is ranked, Turtles 2, the arcade game, because it's just a very familiar concept. They didn't really do enough to differentiate this game from the arcade game. It's almost just like a continuation of that. Next, we have POW, Prisoners of War. As an NES war game, this one holds up. I still play this one. I even bought a copy of this on the Switch for $1.99. This game is a fun game, and I very much enjoy the side-scrolling war carnage adventure that you can go through on this game. It's a little like Contra. I think it's a little easier than Contra as far as beating it, but it's a really fun game. Speaking of fun side-scrolling shooters, RoboCop was so much fun to play as a kid, and quite frankly, I still enjoy RoboCop. The graphics were very good for their time, and it was a challenging but not impossible game. And again, the soundtrack on this was great. It really did a good job of mimicking the movie soundtrack. There's just a lot to like here in RoboCop. Next up is Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. I love this game. I love being able to switch back and forth between characters. I love having more control in which route you take as far as which path you're going to take to the end of the game. Graphics were great. Soundtrack was great. I don't have really anything bad to say about this game. This game is just a lot of fun. I bought the Castlevania Anniversary Package on the Xbox One just so I could play this game on the Xbox One. That's how much I like it, even though I already have a copy for the NES. Castlevania 3 is a great game. We are into the top 3, and I think for the top 3, on any given day, these top 3 could be interchanged, but this is how I feel today. Number 3 is Super Mario Bros. 3. This game was huge when it came out, and it definitely changed the trajectory of Mario. Mario 2, I don't even own it. I did not find that a fun game. I remember my friend Brian, he had it, and I played it over at his house a couple times, and I was like, what is this? And then Mario 3 comes out, and it's like, this is what I wanted out of Mario. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a great game, still holds up, still fun to play. Number 2 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. This is another one of those games, I still play it. I still play it a lot. I purchased the Cowabunga collection. I have it for the Switch and the Xbox. That's how much I like this game. I play this game a lot. I revisit this game and Turtles in Time quite a bit. Just because they're fun games to play. It doesn't take a lot of thinking. If I have 20-30 minutes, I can plug it in, bash up some foot soldiers and usually beat the game in that time period. And it just every time you beat it, it's just a satisfying experience. It really is just a fun game. But my number one game out of the games that I own is Dragon Warrior. Dragon Warrior is such a phenomenal NES game. I have spent hours and hours and hours of my life playing this game, and I bought it on the Switch. And you know, me and my dad, we spent a lot of time playing this game when I was a kid, and we never beat it. I'm very happy to say that about 2 years ago, I bought it on the Switch and I beat it. And I even called my dad and let him know, Dad, I beat Dragon Warrior. And I think by that time he'd forgotten about it, but I didn't. This is such a fun game, such a good game, challenging, tells a great story, just a really fantastic game. So Dragon Warrior is my number one. So again, this is just the ranking of the NES games that I own. I used to own The Legend of Zelda. That game, several years ago, the cartridge broke, and I don't have it anymore. If I were to rank the NES games, Legend of Zelda would be number one. Legend of Zelda is one of the great games ever. And because of Legend of Zelda, Nintendo, because of Zelda and Mario, Nintendo became the company that it is. So I love The Legend of Zelda. I'm happy to say that I do, own a copy of it on the Wii and the Switch. So I do get to revisit it whenever I want, but unfortunately I no longer have a copy of it, a hard copy of it for the NES. But it would be my number one. But this ranking was just the games that I own. So let me know, guys, what did I get wrong? What would you rank higher? What would you rank lower? Let me know in the comments below.